Hi, everyone. Welcome to my live today with global insurance brokers on addressing your mental health and your wellness during these times of corona quarantine. I'm just going to give us some time uh, to make sure everybody who wants to log in has been able to log in. And if you're just watching the replay, then I hope you enjoy what we're going to create right now. So, to start off, before I get into the topic, I thought I'd just spend some time to introduce myself. My name is Megha Mawandia, and I run an organization called Trioke. We focus on mental health and well being of parents in particular because we believe in families. If we support the parents, then everybody thrives. Because without having a full jar, there's no possibility of water being poured to anybody else. So, putting parents at the center of well being is the idea behind the work that I do. I'm affiliated with this organization called Hand in Hand Parenting in America, which has some great tools and resources which you can check out. I will share a link for them as well. And we do work in not for profit areas like slums of Mumbai, while also with corporates and schools and individuals. So, my area of work really in this entire space of mental health and well being of family is to take the tools that hand in hand parenting has created, which is in an international context, and look at how it fits into the Indian context and Indian family, which is fairly unique. Within the Indian family, what I am seeing is the difference between socioeconomic classes. So, when we look at these tools in people of privilege, people with lesser privilege, and people who are really living in the poverty line where the privilege is very little, what I am seeing beyond all of these lines is the core remains the same. And the core is how I am feeling and how I'm able to address my child's feelings. So, why are we doing this topic today? Because today we're in probably one of the most challenging times the world has faced in the near in time as we have known it, where there is a lot of stress, there is a lot of uncertainty, and there is honestly a lot of work that has come onto our shoulders as homemakers, as parents, as individuals who are working in our respective roles. There is job uncertainty. There is economic climate which is stressful. There is the health, which is very scary because the numbers that are growing every day and the situations in the hospitals is not instilling confidence in any of us. There is an added angle of stress, which is social media. I have countless number of parents who've been coming up to me and talking about the anxiety their Instagram or Pinterest or Facebook is giving them because people are being so productive in these corona times. All of this needs to be addressed and all of this needs an outlet for us to be able to function, to be able to play the many hats we need to play. So, my talk today is really going to be divided into three parts. There are three main topics that I'm planning to address today. The first is how do we create pockets of mental space? These pockets of mental space are very, very, very important for us to be able to function throughout the day. The second is going to be how do I balance working from home and the responsibilities of being at home? And the third is going to be how do I address my children's needs and their need for time and attention while I have all of these balls up in the air juggling, none of which I can realistically put down. Please feel free to post any questions. I hope I'm able to get the information here as it comes my way. And if not, I promise to address your questions after I have finished speaking via the messaging. All right. So, the first part of the talk, which is pockets of mental space. So, what we are seeing is your morning starts, and all the roles that you have previously played are all amalgamated into one chunk of time. There is no schedule to go out. Children are not on a schedule to go to school. There is no meeting that you can do which is outside the house. The entire process of getting ready, going to work, all of it has mental health built into it, all of which has gone out of the window. In fact, I was just on a call with a parent whose child only wants to wear pajamas all day long. And upon further conversation, the mother said, "Well, I'm also only wearing pajamas all day long." Because we've really blurred the boundaries between the outside world and the inside world. In blurring the boundary of outside the house and inside the house, we are actually, unfortunately, also blurring the boundary between inside our mind and outside our mind. The inside our mind being our mental health. So here's what I propose. Could you create a timetable of breaks throughout the day for yourself? For example, one parent who's been working with me came up with a brilliant strategy. She wakes up at 5:30 in the morning. Her children wake up at 8 o'clock. So she gets a crucial 2.5 hours of mental health and space for her to address the work she needs to address and just get time for herself. She has started taking a nap in the afternoon after she has finished her tasks with her children and lunch is done. And at night, she started to go to sleep before her children do. Now, let's face it, her children are teenagers and they don't need to be supervised at night. And they are doing a good job of going to sleep on time and waking up at a time which seems reasonable for their timetable. So, this is what this mother has done to utilize the situation created for her. Another parent I know, and this is a parent who's partnering with his wife. He is waking up late, but he is also sleeping very late. And it is the time between the children going to bed and him going to sleep that he is being able to take care of his mental health and well being. Another way to do the mental health well being timetabling is to play tag with various members in your household. You could be playing tag with your spouse. You could play tag with any other caregivers that you might have at home. You could even play tag with your children. So maybe you could make a little piece of paper and you could write on that paper that this is my break time, or dad on break, or mom on break, and stick it on your chair that you're sitting on, outside the room that you might be in, or any space to demarcate, leave me alone for some time. So if your children are too young, you're going to have to work with their timetable. If they're too young, you need to create these mental health breaks when they are sleeping or being occupied by somebody else. Another parent I work with has created a regular Skype time between her own parent, so the child and their grandparent, because they can't be in the same house together. So every afternoon, grandmom gets on Skype and tells her grandchild stories while mom gets a break to read her book. So I'd love to hear what sort of creative solutions you might come up with while trying to create these mental health breaks, but they are extremely important. Sleep is also a healer. So if you're going to take a mental health break to take a nap, fantastic. Sleep goes a long way to help us heal from trauma. And let's face it, what we are experiencing today is trauma. We're going to write about it, talk about it, learn about it in history books in times to come. That this is a highly unnatural situation that we're all in, where the entire world has been shut down and the economic climate is in the brinks of collapse. Think about these mental health breaks a little bit like those times in your office when you're in the middle of a presentation and you go and have a coffee break. And you don't just go and quickly fix yourself a cup of coffee. You end up chit chatting with somebody or the other, or you stroll over to somebody's desk and say, "Hi, how are you?" Check in with them, crack a joke. We're looking at these light-hearted moments and what can we do to build that into our life today. For many people, going onto social media can play that role of mental health breaks, but unfortunately, they are not the same thing. Because when we go on social media, we're not only light, we can also go into heavy mode. It instills it might bring out feelings of FOMO, things we're missing out on. It might bring up feelings of what else is going on in the COVID scenario. And it might bring up all sorts of emotions that we're not geared for, that we've not planned for in the mental health breaks. So, a better thing to do would be to have some pre planned list of things that bring joy, bring laughter, get on a call with somebody, look at a comic book, something light, something fun, which isn't getting into the areas of seriousness. So, to recap, the first point that I have addressed is to create pockets of mental space. The ways I can recommend to you to create these pockets of mental space is by number one, creating a timetable where maybe you're waking up earlier or sleeping later, where you look at sleep as a way of healing from trauma and where you find things that could be lighthearted in nature that you indulge in throughout the day, not necessarily social media. Moving on to our second point. The second one being working from home and taking care of your children at home at the same time, your home responsibilities, which doesn't necessarily involve just the children. It could be the cooking and the cleaning and the tidying up that you have to do. It could be the check in you need to provide to the various family members you have. Maybe your parents are living with you and you need to take care of their health. Maybe they're not with you and you have to create time to be able to listen to them via whatever social media platform, communication platform that you need to make. So, how do we do all of these tasks at the same time? So, the reality is right now, all the lines have been blurred. Again, going back to your time, pre corona times, you would have gotten up, had a schedule, gotten ready, dropped everyone into their various pockets. So, whether the children go to school, you go to work, everything had its designated space. For a lot of people, that process of moving from home to work was the process of switching off from being a homemaker into switching on into being an office goer. Now that switch is just a continuous flipping of pages. You no longer have that space to take time to move. We call this time space compression. The time it would take you to go from your home into your office is the amount of time it would take for you would have to be able to mentally switch between these roles. But with working from home, the time space compression is such that you being at work and you being at home is together all the time at the same time. And the amount of multitasking abilities you need to be able to switch between the two is frankly very exhausting. So, what do we need to do in that situation? Number one, we need to recognize it. By recognizing it, we're giving ourselves a chance to find solutions for it. If we're not going to recognize it, it's going to be very hard for us to find solutions to be able to deal with it. For some people who are working from home, putting on some makeup like I have right now, or putting on some work clothes is a great way for them to be able to switch into work mode. The act of just putting on a tie, a lot of people aren't wearing pants, they're wearing shorts, but with a tie so that they're able to conduct their meetings. But I want you to think very mindfully of the process of putting that tie on or putting that lipstick on to get you to switch mentally from home into work. Again, utilize that method of playing tag to show your children and everybody else around you that you are working now. What this also means is instead of working from 9 to 5 continuously, what if you were to create a schedule where you work for an hour, you take a 15-minute break, You work for an hour, you take a 15-minute break. The work that you're doing is way more productive being at home. You're not wasting time in commutes, you're not wasting time in going for meetings or people to show up for meetings. You're able to concentrate more, so your productivity is higher. So the amount of time you need to accomplish the same amount of tasks is technically less. But because we're constantly using so much energy to switch between task 1 and task 2 and task 1 and task 2 and then 3 and then 4 and back and forth, back to 1, back to 4, we're drained by the end of the day. So what if we were to create pockets that use your timer effectively and see, I'm going to work on this right now. And everything else has disappeared for me, unless, of course, there's an emergency I need to address. And maybe at 10 o'clock, I'm going to check in on the children to see what are they doing. And I'm going to spend half an hour with them or 15 minutes with them. And then I'm going to go back to my work. And like that, to flip back and forth mindfully and with breaks thrown into the middle. This way, we will reduce the burden of blurring of these roles and be able to create a better harmony between working from home and the home tasks that we need to do. It's very, very, very important that while we're doing this, all of the adults involved are able to give each other the space that they need to provide each other to be able to do this work. We need to allow for this cabin fever that could be hitting us to diffuse with time and space. So think about it like this. When you earlier would drive a manual transmission car, you had to get used to one foot on the clutch or the brake and the other on the accelerator. You never pressed both together. Now we're getting with automatic cars, you get used to just the accelerator and the brake. Just as there was a transition between manual transmission into automatic transition, look at this as a transition from going into work physically and managing more things while doing that, and the act of going into work as just being in front of a screen and managing less physical things but a lot more mental things. Yeah? All right. So, what we also need to do while we're looking at this work from home balance and home tasks balance is simplifying things. So, say you're the woman of the house, and a task you also have is to cook meals. Do you think that process could be simplified further? Where it is a meal that you're putting on the table, but it's not taking you the kind of time and effort it would have otherwise taken you had you been doing this during your holidays or breaks. It's important to understand this is not a holiday. There's a lot of posts on social media which is trying to convince you otherwise, and on the whole, those posts are fairly good because they're trying to address your mental health by telling you, look at the positive side of things. You have so much time that you're able to get a break. And for those of you who are able to look at it like that, fabulous. That's great. And I would love to keep you to use that spirit to help others have that kind of spirit up in place. But the reality is, for most of us, there is a lot of anxiety and stress that is underlying this time that we have away from physically being at work. And that anxiety and stress takes a lot of energy. So, this is not that time of holiday where every Sunday I would cook 5 things. No, I can't cook 5 things right now. So, I'm going to keep my meals simple. I'm going to do what I can to reduce things. So, a parent messaged me recently that from cleaning the bathrooms every day, I'm cleaning it once a week. Great! Great! Whatever works in your household to simplify it, please go ahead and simplify it. So, to recap, we just talked about balancing work from home and housework, in which we talked about the importance of being able to switch between the act of being at home and being at work at home, to use mindfully techniques like putting on your lipstick or your tie or whatever it is that you could do the act of opening your computer and spreading your papers, as the act of transitioning between the two roles. Creating timetables so that you're able to build in healthy breaks to check in on your children or house tasks that you need to do. And to recognize that you're going to need less time to complete the same amount of tasks because there are less distractions in the house. You're able to be more efficient with your time. It is really like learning how to drive a car instead of a manual into an automatic transition. It takes some time, but it is smooth and it is easy once you get used to it. So, the third thing that I wanted to talk about in our session today is about your children. How do we address their need for time and attention? And how do we address this monster called homeschooling? So, firstly, let me clarify for those of you who do have distance schooling going on, what you are doing is not homeschooling. Homeschooling is a choice that the parent makes. Homeschooling is child learning led. And homeschooling is about having the time and the resources to learn how you're going to be the driver of your children's education. What you are currently doing is taking schooling and becoming the tuition teacher to be able to support that schooling, which is completely different from homeschooling. Let's face it, schools have never faced this situation. No teacher training program, no school training program has equipped with them with a time where all of a sudden school is going to shut down and you're going to start teaching online. It's just never happened. So, keeping that in mind, trying to keep up with what is going on in school or what school is expecting you to do is too much. You might be able to keep up with it or you might not. For some of you, it might be a welcome distraction. For some of you, it's too much to handle. And it is okay. It is okay if this is not something you're going to be able to do effectively. Look at the schedule school has sent out and pick what seems easier and what seems most important for your child. Don't worry about them being able of them going back into school and being lost. Trust me, every parent is worrying about the same thing. And every parent needs to work on what they can do first, what seems important. So, one parent said, I just chucked homeschooling for a week and I felt I could do so many more activities with my child. Another one said, I looked at the activity and I thought of a creative way in which I could do it using what I had and what felt more natural between me and my child. So use that. The intention is not to do that activity, but the intention is to translate that learning. So look for that learning. Behind all of this homeschooling stuff, what we need to understand is what our children need from us. Our children need us to be parents, not teachers. We're getting lost in that role of becoming teachers. One parent shared with me recently that it was an entire day and her son was just flopping around. And usually, flopping around meant looking at shows on his iPad, and he didn't want to do that either. And he just seemed withdrawn and listless. And mom and dad were playing tag and switching between their roles of taking care of him, but they saw that they weren't able to get any work out of him either. And this is a 5-year-old boy. Finally, by evening, mom went up to him and he broke down crying. And she said, what happened? What's going on with you today? And he just said, I've been noticing that y'all have stopped smiling at me. That's it. That's what our children need. They cannot lose their parents in this process of gaining teachers in the house. So, just like with your work, I've asked you to create that transitioning between when you're working and when you're getting your mental space for yourself or doing other tasks. Do you think you could do that with your children as well? Maybe after 5 in the evening, there is no homeschooling tasks, and we're back to being a family where we dance, we play, we sing, we play games, we cook together, we clean together, we do things, but we make it fun and we don't make it about a teaching moment or a learning moment. We need to recognize that there needs to be a difference between all of these things. So, to recap my third point, which was children need your time and attention, we need to number one, recognize what we're doing is not homeschooling. Number two, pick what we can do out of it and let go of the rest. It's okay. Number three, make sure that we are being the parent as well. We're not getting lost in our role of being the teacher. Yeah. So these were the three suggestions from me. I'm just going to take a moment to see if there are any messages that I can try to catch, or if there are any questions that I could try to address in this session right now. So if you could just bear with me a moment while I try to figure this technology out. Difference between. Yeah. Looks like I'm not able to figure it out. But thank you so much for tuning in, and I hope to see you all again next week. If you have any questions that you'd like to post, please do so in the comments, and I will be sure to get back to you on them. Take care. Bye bye.